Okay, hello. This is Ned Tibbetts from Mountain Education coming to you to present the first of a series, we hope, on the snow safety issues facing Kennedy Meadows South PCT thru-hikers as they are about to enter the Sierra this May 8th of 2023 after our huge winter that we had. Not too long ago, and is still persisting a bit with typical light May showers, snow showers. Now, I want you to understand, you guys, that you can still get 1 to 3 feet of snow in a single storm into June in the Sierra because it is such a huge mountain range, so close to a huge ocean with lots of humidity. These things happen every month of the year. We do have winters and springs and summers and falls and stuff like that, but it is not unheard of for a big snowfall to happen late in the winter and early in the winter or late in the fall. So at both ends of the bookend of the summer hiking season. All right, so what I'm going to do is address your concerns in concept form, and then get into descriptions of what you're going to see and the skills you're going to need to do to make it through. I know I said that a minute ago, but the recording's on, and maybe we can capture all of this from the beginning for people who could not make it. I will probably do these maybe once a week. So for you guys in Kennedy Meadows South, do share the word that these things can happen, but I may need to wait until there are enough people on the porch there at the general store so that I can address a greater group. So maybe once a week. Okay, Mountain Education is a wilderness school. We are believe it or not, we are a public charity, nonprofit, etc. We've been around since 1982. We can't accomplish any of this stuff without your donations. You can go to the website, mountain-education.org. There's a donation button, yada, yada. Got to get that out there because pretty much I work a regular job in order to bring all of this stuff for free to you, whether it's online or in person. I'd like to be able to do in-person classes. For years, I taught at a Kennedy Meadows South up and over Kearsarge Pass with thru-hikers for 10 days to teach you guys what it takes. But because I have to hold down a regular job now, I can't do that. So this is going to have to do. Jeff, did you have a question?
Yeah, you're dropping out a lot and your video is frozen. I don't know if anybody else has got that.
I wouldn't know how to fix it anyway. So can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, but your video is still frozen.
Yeah, well, I'm not doing anything. I'm not going to be showing anything. So I don't care much about the video. You can look at it, but mainly listen, okay? All right, let's get into this because it's going to take time. First concept, I want you guys to know what the thaw is in the Sierra. Obviously, it's a time frame when the snow melts, so there's nothing new about that concept. But there is it's controlled per elevation by the ambient temperatures that exist there. And I'm still letting in people, so that's good. So right now, as I mentioned earlier, the elevations of 9,000 feet and under are already at or over 32 degrees Fahrenheit at night. It's the overnight low that will tell you as you're hiking north at Kennedy Meadows South, if you're able to monitor it. Right now, your overnight lows should be in the teens or 20s, but once they reach 32 and stay there or climb above it, the thaw is beginning at your elevation. I will get into what that will look like. I will get into how you'll deal with the hazards in a little bit, but I wanted to get it in your heads that right now you're in something I've called the secret season, and this is this month-long window of May. It's not always in May because after drought winters, it's earlier. But this year, even though we had a heavy winter, actually heavier than heavy, I call it huge. I kind of thought that it might start late, but it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. You've got overnight freezing temperatures, firming up the snow, and making for really wonderful You guys are going to have some wonderful over snow hiking, no post holing, no sun cups, no things to trip you up, even tree wells and boulder wells and things like that that you might fall into. You're going to have to work at doing because the snow will be so hard, even into the late afternoon. You barely be making a dent in the snow surface with your shoes, so it's going to be glorious. So we talked about the elevational differences. I've got some notes because I had to really consolidate down all that I'm trying to present to you. This is going to be a lot. And I want you to realize that the thaw is triggered not just by ambient temperatures, but also by length of daylight, intensity of the sunlight.
Sorry.
Hello? You got to mute yourself. I don't see that you're muting yourself. But anyway, I'll continue. Wind is a huge factor triggering the thaw, besides ambient temperatures and amounts of sunlight. So if you get a lot of clouds, it's gonna cool down the snowpack and you'll have harder surfaces to walk on. Obviously, if you get more snow, all the better. So more clouds, more cold weather is what you need to be asking for in your wanderings and in your thoughts, because that'll help you a lot. I want to get you guys over or through the Sierra to Sonora Pass. That's your target before the thaw starts. You can do your own math on the number of miles, but that's where you want to get to, because from Sonora north, you don't have any big creek crossings. The last nasty creek crossings that you don't want to get caught in during the time of the thaw is in the northern washboard of Yosemite National Park. So from Kennedy Meadows north, those creeks are very, very long above the point where you're going to be crossing them. So therefore, tons of snow is going to be melting, pouring into the creeks, coming down your way, and making it a bit of a nightmare to cross, if not very dangerous. Unto fatal, we have had people killed trying to cross thaw-fed creeks in the Sierra. Now, it looks like I've lost my connection to the thru-hikers in Kennedy Meadows South. I hope they come back. The next concept, besides the thaw, has to do with the fact that you're heading up into the snow. Let's just be really obvious. It's the big fear right now, the big snow zone. Now, what is it and what will you see and how does it manifest itself? You've already been in snow, Mount San Jacinto, maybe Mount Laguna, the San Gorgonio, San Bernardino's, working your way around at altitude LA, and then coming up into the ramp leading to the Kern Plateau and where you are right now. You are on the Kern Plateau, Kennedy Meadows South, elevation, what, about 6,000 feet, I think. So you've been on dry trail in snow off and on. You've got an idea of how snow first presents itself. You've got to be at the elevation where it all hasn't melted out yet. Since you're going to be climbing up there, they're back. Since you're going to be climbing back into the snow, you're going to see first dry trail, obviously, that you're walking on. Then you're going to start seeing patches of snow in the trees. The snow will exist where it's cold. So in the shade, on north sides of things. The north side doesn't get affected by sunlight or by direct sunlight, because for the hemisphere, southern aspects, or the slopes of a mountain that face to the south are going to get blasted by sunlight in the northern hemisphere. So if the north side of a ridge, say Forester, for example, the north side of Forester is going to have more snow on it than the south side. The south side is going to get a lot more sun. So as you climb up into the Sierra, you're going to be largely on southern aspect slopes, or slopes that face to the south. So you're going to be probably not hitting snow line. That'll be one of the terms I'll be using in this presentation. That's the point where patches of snow will now turn to solid snow. Solid meaning the snow is everywhere. So you're going to transition from dry trail, really wet trail, or a transition zone. Before you hit the snow itself, all that snow is melting, and where's it going to go? It's going to go into the actual trail bed and start flowing down the trail bed. You can walk outside the trail bed. Of course, the land managers don't like it because it disturbs the soil, and et cetera, makes the trail wider. But you guys aren't that many of you who have to dodge the water in the trail and walk outside of the trail. So it really doesn't have that much of a long-lasting effect as far as land and soil conservation goes. So you're going to go from dry trail through this transition zone of wet creeks where the creeks turn into, where the trail turns into creeks, and then you're going to hit snow line where you have the patches in the trees and it turns into solid snow everywhere and you no longer can find the trail. In transition, you can see the trail here and there and patches of snow covering it here and there. So when you get on the snow, you're looking for where the trail comes out from under the snow. And so then you go down that way and you walk on the trail where it is wet or dry or muddy or whatever, until you have to climb up on another snow berm, go across that, pause, look around to see if the trail went to the left, the right, went straight ahead or whatever, and then go that way. There will come a point at snow line where everything is covered, and the only way you're going to figure out where the trail is visually is by looking for an indentation of the snow forming a trough in the snow, a linear trough that shows you, oh, the trail must be, the trail indentation must be under the snow right there. It looks like a trail, a line of trail, and it's going certainly in the right direction. So you're going to see that at snow line, but once the snow gets thicker and thicker, or deeper and deeper, that trough indentation is going to disappear. When the snow gets about 3-4 feet deep, you're going to lose all of your trail sign, which is typically placed on the tree at mid-chest elevation, eye elevation, not so much, but you know, about mid-body elevation on trees, which is about 3-4 feet up. And so you're going to lose all your little trail signs and trail junction signs. So you've really got to, in order to navigate safely over snow, and I'm going to get into this in detail, but you've really got to know where the trail is going, not in the big picture, but in the micro picture. So I'll be referring later to micro navigation, meaning finding your way up close, say the next 100 feet. And then macro navigation, meaning where am I going to be in a couple of hours? Which way do I want to go? Do I want to drop into this creek drainage in front of me? And if so, then how do I get out of that? Because once I get to the bottom of the creek down there, which could be 800 feet down, so you're dropping into Rock Creek or Crabtree or Wallace or Wright or Tyndall or whatever, it's all trees. And navigating in trees is probably going to be your biggest nightmare because you cannot find a distant landmark to navigate to. You will be doing what we call visual navigation out there rather than always looking for a sign on a tree or actually having a trail to follow. You don't have any of that, so you're looking for landmarks. Have your topographic map out, have your GPS out, and know where you are at all times relative to where the trail is. I will stop every 30-40 feet as needed to consult with my map, paper map, and GPS to know that I'm paralleling the trail or on it. And I will get more into this expression in a second, but the expression is you do not have to be on the trail to follow it. Matter of fact, staying on the trail in some places, like over switchbacks, where are switchbacks? Where are switchbacks? On very steep slopes. Do I want to be on snow on very steep slopes? Hell no. If there's another way to go around it, I want to do that. It's safer. You will be navigating not by following the trail. You will be navigating by the safest route over the snow that goes the same place as the trail. You can reconnect with it later. Totally cool. You're still following the trail, but just off to the side. So it's no big deal. Okay. I've got after snow line, where you first contact solid snow and you lose sight of the trail. You have what I call the misery zone. This is that area of trail where the snow is melting like mad. It's warm. The trail is running with water where you can see it. You're post-holing. You're wallowing in snow. You don't really, you're not totally certain about where the trail is going and where you should be going. There's sun cups. There are open creeks that are now flowing like mad, not their max yet because the upper altitudes have not started to thaw out yet, but you'll see bigger creeks down in this misery zone below or slightly above snow line, because when you hit the snow, it's melting. You go up higher, it gets colder and colder to where you hit the thaw line. The thaw line is where every night it's still refreezing. The snow goes through what's called freeze-thaw cycles. Thaws during the day, refreezes at night. As long as it's refreezing, it can hold your weight. So then you can make some progress. So there is a thaw line It's not based on elevation. It's based on temperature with some influence from aspect and wind and you know, those other things I mentioned, whether there's been a rain to waste the snow, that kind of junk. So this is just breaking down what I call the different zones of snow. To take that further, I want you to get in your head that snow isn't just uniform in composition. The snow got there because storms came in and dropped it. Some storms will drop 10 feet, 3 feet, 6 feet, 2 feet, depends on the storm. We had this winter what we call atmospheric rivers dump tons of snow per storm. The storm lasted for days. So between the storms, the sun will come out, it will melt surface snow, it will be refrozen at night, and you'll have an ice layer. And then another storm comes along and dumps so many feet. The sun comes out, it thaws, refreezes at night, you get another ice layer. So if you were to look at the snowpack, it's going to be composed of multiple layers of ice with multiple layers of softer snow, which could have a whole lot of air in it. That's the stuff that you like plunge through until you hit the next ice layer. So I put this in your head because I want you to understand that when the surface snow, just before it starts thawing, but when the surface snow gets soft in the afternoon and you're still able to walk on the snow, you're walking on an ice layer that's underneath all soft stuff on top. So you still need to have some form of traction aid unless your shoes have a sole with deep enough lugs that you can get a bite into and have some traction without an artificial chain or cramp-on type thing on your foot to get a bite into that ice layer, because snow is going to move. As a matter of fact, if you try and self-arrest in soft snow, it's not going to work. You got to be able to self-arrest tool has got to be able to get a bite into something hard in the snowpack to slow you down to a stop. But those layers are in there. That little thing is, I can't do much about those. Those are emails coming in, so excuse that noise. There are different types of snow, right? There's powder snow, consolidated snow, refrozen snow, that kind of stuff. A snowstorm will bring in fresh snow or powder snow. You don't walk on top of that. You're going to have to kick through it, wallow through it, do what you can do to struggle through it until, and it will, after the sun comes out, it will melt. It will reabsorb itself. Snow loves to absorb water. So the water that melts on the surface will settle and be reabsorbed by the snow layers below it. At night, it will refreeze into this mass. I mean, and it's what we call consolidated snow. And that is just really wet, but refrozen, hard-packed snow. Has ice layers in it, yeah, but it's not ice like back east, you know, where you can go ice skating on it. This is more of a frozen, thick, crusty layer. It can be feet thick. Matter of fact, when you think of a frozen lake in the Sierra, it's feet thick of this water saturated but refrozen snow. Okay, I want to make sure people come and go, and I don't want to lose my Kennedy Meadows South guys. You are my priority. Everybody else is just along for the ride. So cheer yourselves on. I hope you all can hear. So two different types. If you get nailed with a powder snowstorm, you can choose to wallow through it, get cold, wet, and be miserable and exhausted and not get anywhere. Or simply chill in your tent for a couple days of sunshine to let that new snow melt and settle and refreeze into the pre-existing pack that you can now walk on. It's a hell of a lot better for your joints and your body and everything else to not be post-holing and struggling. Chill in your tent for a couple of days. You'll be milling around outside and talking to each other and stuff like that. You'll know when you can start walking on the snow again, you know, because you'll be able to one morning. And so that will tell you when you can pack up and leave. I would highly recommend that you wait for all new snow to consolidate as long as it's refreezing at night before you try and walk on it. So those are the snow types: powder, consolidated, and soup. We must not forget soup, because that's the crap that you're going to have to deal with after the thaw starts. So when you start noticing those low overnight temperature readings not dipping below 32 anymore, and maybe only going to 34 or maybe 36, you're in the thaw, and now you're going to have to deal with the snow surface conditions typical of the thaw, which are horrible. Wet, soft snow that you won't support your weight. You'll be post-holing maybe to your groin. You'll be wallowing in the stuff. You'll have sun cups appearing. They're just dimples in the snow surface caused by warming of things like pine needles, dust, pine cones, branches, junk like that. Largely it's dust and dirt that will accumulate on the snow surface because it gets warmer than the surrounding snow. It will melt the snow into a honeycomb pattern on the surface of the snow, which will turn into garbage can sized depressions. And you pretty much be forced to walk on the rim of all of these sun cups, hopefully really early in the morning. As these things soften, you can kick through them a little bit, you can stomp them down a bit, but once they get really deep and you think, gee, Ed, why didn't you just tell me that I can step in the bottom of a cup and just go from bottom of sun cup to bottom of sun cup, because you can post hole through the bottom of the sun cup, and then you're really in some deep stuff, which could have boulders and trees and things under that you could go in deeper. And that's not cool. So that was snowpack pipes. That was number 4 of 10. We're getting through the concepts. Snow, where can it be found, is largely based on the aspect of the hill. So we've already talked about which way is the hill facing. If it's facing to the south, you're going to have little to no snow unless you come higher in elevation where there's just a ton of snow anyway. There'll be less of it on the southern aspect than there will be on the north aspect. And we talked about this earlier with reference to Forrester. But you'll also have this problem, can be a benefit, descending into all creeks that face or run east-west. So, for example, your first one will be Rock Creek right after Cottonwood Pass. So Rock Creek, Crabtree, Wallace, and Wright are all east-west facing creeks, which then, because you're going northbound, you're going to descend into the northern aspect or on a northern aspect slope that's going to have a ton of snow on it. And you're looking across the creek canyon, you're going, hell, there's not much snow over there. I can't wait to get there. But you've got to have to go through all this snow. Your audio is pretty choppy. Oh, man, I don't know how to do that. Oftentimes turning off your video will help. Okay, cool. Cool, I'll try that. Let's see if that helps. You guys give me some feedback if that helped. All right, so when you come out of the creek, you may have only a couple feet of snow, whereas going down into the creek, you'll have untold amounts of snow. During the winter, storms blow out of the southwest. So therefore, they want to go over the ridge and dump all of their loose powder on northern aspects. The wind comes out of the south, grabs the snow, it's sitting on the ground, and blows it over the ridge onto the other side. So that's why there's more snow to begin with on northern aspects than southern. Eastern aspects, say like descending down Kearsarge Pass to go out for a resupply, will have more snow than the western ones. Because where is the sun the hottest? In the afternoon on western aspects. So if you wanted to follow, for example, going out of Evolution, Upper Evolution Valley and Evolution Lake, you descend via a series of switchbacks into Lower Evolution Valley. That is on a western aspect. So those switchbacks may be showing or not, just because they get a lot of sun. But that's probably not going to happen until the thaw starts. So I wanted to point out to you that as you're looking at your maps every night and planning your route and anticipating what you're going to see as far as landmarks to navigate to, and assure yourself upon recognition of them that you're in the right place, this is the stuff you want to do at night. And also getting an idea of where you might want to get to during the day. Keep in mind, over snow travel is accomplished at about 1 mile an hour. Don't try and push it, because to push it means you're going to slip more. And you don't want to be aggressive on snow. Now, if you've got crampons on and you've got just the right surface conditions, yeah, you can motor right along, maybe 2. I would not expect any kind of speed on snow unless the conditions are perfect. Here's another takeaway expression, an understanding, a concept, if you will. The snow is what will dictate what you can do and what you can't do. If the snow is soupy, obviously, you can't get very far. If it's refrozen at night, that's why you guys are there right now. You bust your hump to get to Kennedy Meadows close to the beginning of May to seize upon the ideal snow surface conditions that are present during the secret season this next 3 weeks now. So speed is going to be based on what the snow will allow you to do. If the snow is also crappy, you're not going to be able to go onto certain aspects because it's going to be just miserable wallowing over there. So you might want to choose to remain in the shade where it's colder and the snow will be harder. You might want to choose routes away from where the PCT goes, but which keep you in shade or put you on northern aspects or eastern aspects where you know there'll be more snow and colder snow. So this is the junk you do at night. You plan your route because your route is to follow the trail, not stay on top of it, because the snow could be really dangerous on the trail. Whereas there may be a little creek drainage nearby, you can go down the gradual ramp of the creek drainage instead of going down switchbacks where the trail goes. So aspect and elevation will tell you where the trail's at. We already covered that a little bit, so I'm not going to go into it too much. That there will be more snow at higher elevations than down below because the storms dumped more higher elevations where it was colder, and also where it's lower, it's already started to thaw out. You probably won't see that effect much until you get off the passes like the big ones and you drop down into Woods Creek and the suspension bridge down there at 8,000 feet. Evolution Valley, you know, most of the time you guys are going to be motoring along at about 10,000 feet with the passes at 12 and 13. So you're going to be in snow, you know, most of the time, but go through a transition zone of wallowing and getting wet. And then below that, you're going to have water in the trails and high flow creeks. Above, you're going to have solid snow bridges, frozen lakes. Wonderful, wonderful walking. I'm going to get more into that in a second. Route selection. We've been talking about you don't have to follow the trail. You don't have to follow the trail. You're following the safest route over snow that parallels the trail. This is the concept. Understand that. It is okay to leave the trail. In other words, you're on 12 feet of snow and you think you're lost if you're not right on top of it. You know you're on top of it because your GPS tells you that, because there's no signs in the trees and there's no indentation in the snow that we already talked about. So when it comes to route selection, you're always looking around. Your head is on a swivel because you're trying to find, based on micro navigation, the next 100 feet, where is the safest route? Where is the snow the thickest? Here's another concept. When the snow starts to thaw, when the snow has airspace underneath it, it's going to be a little grayer or maybe a little bit of light blue rather than white. So the takeaway expression for always being on thickest, deepest snow, because that will support your weight, is to walk on white. So if you have a choice in front of you in the next 100 feet of a mishmash of grayish and whitish and light bluish and a spattering of different things, it's telling you, or should tell you in your head, the light bulb should go off. Oh shit, in certain places up ahead, the snow is a little thinner than might support my weight. So I want to walk on white, and I want to pick a route through this meadow or whatever it might be. Usually that's where you're going to have these problems, southern aspect slopes where you've got a lot of melting and thinning going on. You want to stay on thick snow. White snow is the appearance. Obviously, avoiding creeks, avoiding lakes, especially when you are in the transition zone or thaw zone where the snow is stupid soft and you might fear falling through. You guys are starting out at dirt level and you're climbing up. So you're going to have the experience of assessing all of these different conditions as you go through them. Hopefully, and you will be rising to 10,000 feet fairly quickly. So you're going to be getting up into the what did I call it? From the thaw line on up into the secret season, really is what it is, above, or no, I shouldn't say above 32 degrees, but below where the snow is refreezing every night. at least in temperatures that are colder than 32. That area, that and above in elevation, is where you want to be. Motor up to there. That'll probably be right around Cottonwood Pass. And we'll get into more of the actual trail reference stuff here in a minute. I'm assuming, because I'm not hearing anybody complaining about my audio, that it's better. I probably could.
It is better.
Hey, sweet. Thanks for speaking up. I was going to look for the chat, but I'm not that technically advanced. I can take you guys anywhere in the Sierra, but I'll get lost in a mall. You know, so it's the technology, it's some of the strange environment of civilization that I got lost on. We covered most of that. Oh, another beautiful thing, just a little concept about route selection. Because there's no trail, you guys can go anywhere. You can go anywhere. It's white everywhere. So if you see a cliff coming up and the trail goes down it, you know, go away from there. You can choose and make your route anywhere that you can walk within your skill set. Feel free. You have my permission. As long as the snow is hard, as long as it's within your skill set to walk there, please choose milder grades. Stay on the cold snow and the shade, whatnot. But once you get above timberline, then you can't really do much about choosing shady areas with colder snow, with the exception of walking at night. And we will get into that more in the how to deal with it, the hazards up ahead. And if I forget, remind me, because walking at night isn't always the best idea, nor beneficial, because one, you can't see the beautiful stuff all around you because everything's dark. And two, your little headlamps can't shine far enough forward for you to navigate by, because you're navigating visually. You're navigating to a landmark you need to see. You can easily get lost on snow because it's pitched right, left, up, down, and you don't know where the hell you are except for a GPS. And that has to follow the trail. And you don't necessarily always want to be on the trail, but you can't see your options. And your little headlamp can't beam far enough ahead to give you an idea where those better slopes might be. So during your transition phases, where you're in the thaw zone and things are soupy and getting nasty, you may have to walk in the early morning, but I probably would not set off until the sky goes from black to light blue. The stars will still be out, and you might even have some moonlight, but at least you'll be able to see the ridge lines around you in order to figure out, God, where's Bishop Pass, or where's Pinchot Pass? You know, oh, is it that depression up ahead? So you're navigating that way, as we said, because the trail may take you to a precipitous area that you're not ready for. So hiking at night is good. It gives you colder snow that will support your weight, but be careful of the drawbacks and start, maybe the sky turns blue enough to see your surrounding landmarks. All right. And that's called topographic navigation. Is you're navigating by topography rather than following the dotted line on the map. I'll refer to that later. Another concept is really your zeal. You've got to temper yourselves. You're in an entirely different, challenging environment. Yeah, it's a different climate. It's colder. But dial back your zeal. You'll catch up on your miles later. What I'm getting to is cut your miles in half and double your food. Sometimes quite literally. You're going to be burning a ton of calories. Snow hiking is very exhausting. Uses entirely different muscles and more of them to stay balanced, to keep feet from slipping, etc. Arms are on, using your poles to control your balance so your head doesn't go left and right as you're doing a traverse. So all of that creates not only just slow going, but greater hunger, greater need for electrolytes and water. Dial it back. You got to take your time. You can, once you hit Sonora, you're going to be at a little bit lower elevation. You're going to have a little more dry trail. You can crank up your speed, that kind of stuff then. But while you're on snow in the Sierra, this is your crucible. This is your big test. You've got 6 weeks under your belts. Your muscles are dialed in. Your hiking machines. Now you're going to have some environmental challenges. After this, you guys can zoom all you want, grow wings and fly, and you'll be able to. Don't expect the snow to be gone though till sometime up in, really Oregon, Washington. You're going to have snow in patches in Northern California as well. All right. The eighth concept I want to hit on of the 10 is pay attention. Everything around you is changing. Not just the weather, not just the sunlight, not just wind and temperatures and junk like that, but it's the snow that's enabling you to go anywhere. That is what's dictating what you can do once again. So it's changing all day long. Sun cups are forming maybe. It's getting softer. Ice layers are present or not. You know, stuff like that. So you've really got to pay attention. And if a storm is coming, and we'll maybe get to the signs of that so you can predict when a storm is coming and when to stay in your tent. Ride out all snowstorms. Don't try and hike in them. You're up at too high an elevation and too cold of an air mass to allow yourself to get wet. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. But back to temper the zeal, enjoy the beauty, 10 to 12 miles a day, 1 mile an hour, 10 or 12 hours of walking. On snow, it's not just flat. There's lots of pitches in all directions, and you're going to be challenged right and left. So dial your anticipated miles back. You'll catch up later. Pay attention to changes. Logistical challenges. This is something you guys are all wrestling with in Kennedy Meadows South right now. You have fewer safe exits. For example, Horseshoe Meadows. Yeah, you can go out, but you're going to have to road walk all the way down to Lone Pine. Long ways, steep. Asphalt, nasty on feet. Think bloody, blistery feet. Kearsarge over Kearsarge and down to Onion Valley Trailhead. That road may not be open yet. Do not think about going over two passes between Kennedy Meadows South and Kearsarge. Do not think you can get out over Trail Crest and Mount Whitney down to Whitney Portal. It's a nightmare. Don't do it. Don't even think about it. And the next pass up that goes out to the east is Shepherd, right before Forester. Shepherd is just an ice bowl at the top on the east side, on its eastern aspect. Don't even bother. Just go over Forester. You do have a choice. Now, if you look at Forester and you go, holy crap, that's a big wall. Right next to Forester, to the right, is the Ski Mountaineers route, which used to be, the route that everybody took before Forester was built. It's, I want to say, slightly higher, but it's gentler on both sides. So if you don't like the look of Forester, go over a few, 100 yards to the east and check out the Ski Mountaineers route, which was very popular years back. Okay, so your exits are Cottonwood. I call it Horseshoe Meadows because there's several passes. There's Mulkey Pass, Trail Pass, and Cottonwood Pass that all descend down into Horseshoe Meadows. So I'm just referring to it as Horseshoe. You've got Kearsarge Pass, north of Kearsarge. You've got Bishop Pass, Mono Pass north of that, Mammoth Pass north of that, Tioga. Hey, the road may be closed, but you can walk it just like the road to Horseshoe. And then Sonora Pass. From there on, you're on ridges with pretty decent walking, and then you got South Lake Tahoe and so forth. So those are your safe exits to the east. There are safe routes out to the west, but a lot of the western roads aren't open yet either. So the resorts at the end of them that you may have planned during your planning stages of getting resupplied at those places, they're not open. Hell, the roads aren't even open. So my advice to you would be to carry sufficient food. I know you've got small packs that may not be able to do it, but kind of like, realize, I don't know who's going to be inspecting your pack to find out if you have a bear canister in there or you have one plus lots of loose food. But maybe you've got what we used to do, extra food in a Ziploc bag tied on the outside, and you're just going down the trail or up the trail in this case. Carry enough food and gear and clothing and stuff to get you to the next, now more distant resupply location. If you're going to road walk all the way out, obviously you got to add those miles too. Anyway, so consider that the Rangers don't get in there until about mid-June, maybe June 1st. So you've got some time of both excellent snow conditions and the ability perhaps to carry more food that let's just say you're gonna hang it from a tree, because we want to promote the rules and regulations of the National Park System and the National Forest System. One thing that we haven't talked about yet is if you cannot get to water in a creek, you can't get to water in a lake because there's still 18 feet of snow on both, where are you going to get your water? You're going to get it from melting snow. Therefore, you're going to have to carry, obviously, a whole lot more fuel than you would normally. So another volume problem. But bring more fuel. And lastly, actually something we've already talked about, which has to do with the freeze-thaw cycles that the snow goes through. It's a good thing because it consolidates the snowpack down. As long as it freezes at night, you're golden. Just keep in mind, it's a concept that's what's going on under your feet. So next section, and we will have a transition to a question answer period. So let me just plow through these things. You guys sip on Kennedy Meadows General Store porch. You know, I have another beer. We're going into another section. You'll see out there when you leave KMS. We've already talked about it a little bit. Your trail will start out dry as you climb up toward Kennedy Meadows. You probably will see some spots of snow on the way to Monache, like in Beck Meadow or in the trees right before Beck. But you won't really climb up into solid snow till Cow Creek out of Monache as you're going up the flank of Olancha Peak. There you'll start having, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 feet of snow sitting in the Cow Creek Canyon. And then as you traverse Olancha on a western exposure, it might be a little thinner, but you're not going to know what it is because the snow's covering all the bushes. Now, if you see, danger. If you see bushes sticking out through the snow, try not to walk on them. Not because of the bush's sake, but because there's nothing but air in there, and you're going to post hole straight into the bush, probably slicing up your leg and ripping clothing and all that kind of junk, because those bushes aren't necessarily little 2 and 3 foot little manzanita things. Some of them are fairly tall willows and things that you don't want to fall into. So if you see something sticking out of the snow that doesn't look like an old, dead, burned up tree trunk or a living tree and stuff like that you can walk around, avoid bushes sticking up through the snow. And that you may see on western and southern aspects as those aspects melt out and thin. And we just talked about my second point there. So snow bridges over creeks, snow over lakes, snow across marshes where it's wet underneath because the topo map tells you where marshes are, and going across meadows where it's flat and water will sit on the meadow under the snow. Water's warmer than snow, so it will create an air pocket between the water and the bottom of the snowpack that you can pop through and then land on the boulders or logs or water or creek or lake or whatever is underneath. So you kind of have in the back of your mind that if you're on a flat area, walk on white. You want to walk on the thickest snow around. Avoid the damn thing and stay in the shade if you're below tree line. There's going to be less melting going on in the trees, in the areas where there's shade and trees, and you're going to have thicker snow. Okay. How do you evaluate snow bridges? So you're walking down toward Rock Creek from Cottonwood Pass, Chicken Spring Lake. You've traversed under Seark Peak. You've crossed Siberian Outpost, which you guys, if you don't follow the summer trail, this is just a routing aside. Don't follow the summer trail. You'll see this monster meadow at your feet as you cross into Sequoia National Park. Remember, you're not walking on dry trails, so you can walk off the trail and your footprints won't encourage other people to follow, therefore creating a new trail, therefore getting in trouble with the rangers and the environmental people who are concerned about soils damage and killing your feet, killing little plants that are sticking their heads up through the dirt and stuff. Everything's buried under snow. You can go anywhere you want. So when you see this monster meadow that's 3 miles long that the trail parallels, you can walk right down the middle of that thing and shortcut the loop that the trail does going around it. This will be, and this is an example of how you're going to navigate, because you can make shortcuts everywhere. You can go across the lake. You can shortcut that. You can go across the meadow. You can pick a route anywhere you want. You can go straight up a mountainside, straight down a mountainside. You can do anything you want, and that will save you tons of summer trail mileage. So you're free to roam about the cabin and go anywhere you want. So, so let's see, snowpack is going to thin with the thaw. So as it does, and you know you're dropping down into Rock Creek, probe ahead. You've gotten to the lowest point and you think that you're over a creek, but you don't know if it can support your weight. Listen. I know it sounds weird. Listen. Stop. Tell everybody around you to shut up and listen. If you can hear the water running underneath the creek, underneath the snow, under your feet, the snow is getting too thin. Maybe then look for colors. Is it white or gray or bluish, light bluish? Then avoid it. There will be wind-driven drifts of snow across the creek, across the snow bridges, where it'll be white instead of gray or light blue. Search for them. Search for log crossings where the snow has piled up on the logs, and you can just walk across that. So you're going to see various different amounts of snow covering creeks, and it's usually in May. You're going to have, and based on a photograph last week from snow surveyor John Ditley, who photographed the creek crossing at Tyndall Creek, which had about 18 feet of snow on it. There was a porthole, or what I'm calling a porthole, where you can look down this opening in the snow, see the water moving, and see that the water is only about 4 feet deep. That's what you should be seeing when you're at altitude where it's freezing every night. It's really not melting out much. There's not a whole lot of water. The creek's falling in and drowning because it's 4 feet deep and all that. So there's so much snow out there right now. You don't have to worry about bridges. I wanted to cover it with white. And lakes are the same way. If the lake is covered white, you can walk right across it. It's going to go through color changes of the surface. It's going to show perimeter cracks cracking out around the outside edge of it where the water meets the rocks underneath. That's where right above that transition point is where it'll crack out because the snow is melting and it's settling and it's dropping down further and further and further into the lake itself. So it's pulling at the snow that's on dry ground, and that's what causes the cracking. You get also linear cracks running across lakes. If you're you can go across all of that. These cracks are only inches wide. You can, as long as you can look down the crack and you can go, it's like, wow, that's 3 or 4 feet deep, and you can't see water. Remember, okay, let me tell you this. Everybody thinks that lakes in the Sierra freeze up like they do back east. They do, but only like in November and December, where you can go ice skating out there or play ice hockey. But once you get 20 feet of snow that's pushing down on that 4 inches of ice, that ice breaks. It pushes into the water underneath. It breaks, cracks, water streams out and up into the snow sitting on top of that ice, saturates this first 3 or 4 feet of snow or more, and refreezes at night. So realize this. Yeah, I should have included this in my concepts. Realize this, that all of the lakes, well, creeks are different because the water's moving. The lake water isn't. All of the lakes have a huge chunk, feet, maybe 3, 4, 5 feet of water saturated, frozen snow sitting on top. There's no way your body weight's going to stress that thing out to where it cracks, and it certainly will crack. You're standing on feet of water saturated, refrozen snow. It's like a big chunk of frozen, crusty, water saturated yuck, but it's frozen. It's just like a big ice cube of snow. Anyway, so creeks, lakes, you guys are going to have a piece of cake walking across them. Even meadows with creeks, as long as you're above the thaw line, as long as it's refreezing at night, you don't really have to worry about a huge volume of water eroding the snow sitting on the creeks, creating air caverns underneath that you might post hole through and fall into the thing. No, you guys have the secret season on your side. Frozen creeks, lakes, just covered. No water above the thaw line. That's what you're going to see. No access to water. You can, if you find a porthole into a creek and you're standing on the edge of it going like, wow, look at that. There's water down there. Can I get down to it? If the snow is only a couple feet deep, you can drop a hose down and pump out. If you don't have the ability to pump out via a hose, then and you've got a dip, you're going to need to back up because you're standing on a creek. You have to back up to where you think you're on the margin between where the creek water would be and where the rocks of the creek embankment would be. That is stable. And from that point, jump up and down. See if you can get the snow to crack out, because you certainly don't want to be standing on it when it's cracking. You want to be on supportive ground. So you've jumped up and down. You've assured yourself that there's like multiple feet of snow across this creek. You do see a porthole, and the porthole shows you that there's 5 or 6 feet till you get to water, but you're just making sure. Anticipate now digging steps, creating steps, stomping steps to create a ladder or stairway down to the water. Keep in mind, your last step will have maybe only a foot or 2 feet of snow underfoot. You don't want to break through there, but if the water is not very deep, it wouldn't make any difference. This is what happens. So the snow breaks underfoot. You don't like fall straight down. What you do is the snow underfoot falls down and you with it. So you land on the bottom of the creek bed, and you look at your buddies and everybody laughs, and you're standing there kind of like, oh, that was a quick little rush. I dropped about a foot or two, and you're fine. You're not wet or nothing. Maybe if there's enough water flow, the water will start trying to get around the snow that you just pushed down into its path, and you still have time to jump out or stand there and let the water find its own level and working its way around the snow that you just dropped in there and you're standing on. So don't panic if you're in this secret season zone, because there's not a lot of water flow for you to worry about, and there's not a lot of airspace created by accentuated water flow during the thaw, because that is what happens. You know, you'll have 3 or 4 feet of air cavern above a rising creek that's splashing and so forth on the boulders and licking at the bottom of the snow and hollowing things out, that if the snow is thin enough, the snow bridge is thin enough, you pop through into this cavern, air cavern, and then into the water. And that's not cool. But you guys will be going through this transitional layer. So when you get out of the nice stuff in the secret season at altitude, 11,000 feet and up, and you're descending down towards, say, Woods Creek or Evolution or whatever, you will be transitioning through warmer snow, thinner snow bridges, and thinner snow on lakes, especially as you proceed up the next month up the Sierra. I think I covered all of that. We're just about to the skills section. Son of a gun, we are at the skills section. Okay, last section. What you guys need to do. That's sort of the stuff that you're going to see. Also, don't anticipate sleeping on dry ground. You probably won't see any dry ground from thaw line up. You guys are going to be in snow all the time, unless you happen to see a boulder outcropping or a granite slab that's sticking out somewhere. It probably won't be level for sleeping. But occasionally, some people have found good camping on top of tabletop rocks. You know, these things are the size of your bedroom, you know, or bigger, and you can walk off the snow onto the top of this rock and pitch your tent if you want, or just simply sleep on top of them. But otherwise, the nice thing about camping in snow, people don't know this unless they've done it, is that you can be on the side of a mountain on 30-degree slope, and all you got to do is stomp out a flat platform, and you can sleep anywhere that's comfortable, because you're just laying down on the snow. So you can make it as comfortable as you want. You can build up little snow pillows for your head. You can dig holes for a place to put your feet in front of your tent door to comfortably change out of boots into down booties and that kind of thing, as if you're sitting on a chair. Matter of fact, I've had students create chairs and kitchen tables and lounge chairs and all kinds of different apparatus out in the snow, because you can. So it's really kind of fun. Anyway, all right, your primary skills. I'm going to begin with those things you probably haven't even thought of. Maintaining the warm, dry, found status. You want to always, should be always in your mind that you want to be warm enough and dry enough. You don't want to be sweating, but I'll get into that in a minute. and you want to always know where you are. So I will always have the GPS in a pocket, front pocket. I always have a paper map in a front pocket, so that I can spot my landmarks to navigate to, or make sure I see them off to my side so I know my progress during the day. Great, I passed that thing. So you always want to know that you're always found. You cannot be on the trail, as we've said. So when you're not on the trail and you see on your GPS the little blue blip or whatever it is that says, okay, this is where you are, and you see the dashed line that says where the trail is, as long as you're paralleling, you're fine. So all the time, I don't care if you're in your tent, you're walking, you just arrived at the pass, you know how it goes. There's a lot of wind on passes, so as soon as you get up there, you've been hot from all this muscle activity. The byproduct of muscle activity is heat and lactic acid, so that's why you guys get cramps and stuff. You might even have a resurgence of cramps going into the Sierra because you're using different muscle groups than you have to get to the Sierra. You're going to go through a lot more electrolytes, but nevertheless, you always want to stay warm and dry and found. Next point of 13, minimize your sweat loss. You lose a lot of electrolytes, largely salt, but sweat will cause you to get cold faster. And once your clothes get wet, they may freeze at night. Once your shoes get wet, they may freeze at night. So you don't want to get wet in a cold environment. So there's another takeaway expression: never get wet in a cold environment unless you have a way to dry off, say in a cabin, in a car. Tents don't work so great because tents don't really give you a warm environment. They'll be warm as long as the stove is running. But turn off the stove. I mean, they're nylon stuff. Wind blows right through them. So their tents don't really help keep you warm so much as they help keep the wind off of you. You're wet, your clothing's wet, clothes wet, all that sort of junk. You're not in a good position in a cold environment. Once you get below, so you're dropping back down into a thaw zone or below, where it's warmer during the day. If you get wet, find dry ground, spread your gear out on all the bushes and junk that's wet, and take a break and let the sun dry everything out, including tent flies and tent bodies and all that kind of junk. Minimize also fatigue. Like I've said, you're using different muscles. You don't want to exhaust yourself. If you're thinking you're going to post hole for the rest of the day from like 2 in the afternoon on, you got this crazy zeal-driven attitude that you got to get to a certain location, and you just simply can't, do the miles tomorrow. They got to be done today. You're going to enter a fatigue, exhaustion zone that is not good. So just dial it back. You can camp anywhere. You can melt snow for water anywhere. Minimize your miles. As we mentioned before, cut your miles in half for what you're used to. If you were doing 20s, now you're doing 10s. And that's probably a good day on snow. Minimize sunburn and solar exposure. Serious. You got to have the SPF in the lip balm, the chapstick, whatever you're using. You've got to think about areas of your face and body that don't normally get burned by the sun because it's now bouncing off the snow and coming up and burning the underside of your nose, the underside of your chin, the underside of your ears, all that stuff. Quite seriously. So if you've got some good SPF 30, whatever, a little dab will do you. Stick it where it's needed, and your body will tell you what's getting burned, and put that SPF on there. That's the sunscreen. Minimize snow blindness. It's a big, big deal whenever you're on snow and the sun is shining. Have a decent set of glacier goggles, glacier glasses, something other than what you'd have, say, on the beach, because those kind of glasses stand off from the skin, but and allow a lot of snow reflected sunlight underneath to penetrate your eye at an angle, causing snow blindness. So you want to have close fitting, good glass with the UVA, UVB, UV, whatever the hell is the marketing thing now, and that fits your skin tightly, or not a seal, but close enough so that you minimize the amount of sunlight that can go around your glasses and get to your eyes. And also, and lastly, minimize avalanches. Now you're thinking, hey Ned, secret season, man, you said there weren't going to be any. There really aren't any. unless you have new powder falling on an old frozen snow surface, especially if it's a foot in deep or more, then you'll have some avalanches popping off around you. But typically, in all my 41 years of teaching this out of Kennedy Meadows South and up and over Kearsarge, you're not going to have a problem on the trail's route itself or even near it until the snow enters the thaw period, where it's getting so stupidly wet and heavy on the surface that you're going to see snowballs spontaneously running in what we call oh God, what are those things called? Pinwheels. Pinwheels are look like little rolling wheels, spiraling kind of tires that create spontaneously, usually from the borders of rock outcroppings where it's hotter. And these little things get started and just start streaming down the mountainside. That should tell you that the surface of the snow is getting too wet, too heavy to support itself, and start looking around you for what's called a wet slough avalanche. This is when an area breaks off from the snow around it. It doesn't have a very good bond anymore, and it just starts moving very, very slowly all by itself on the surface. It's not like those huge air-driven freeway speed winter avalanches that knock over buildings and destroy everything in sight. These are just local events. And if you watch out for the pinwheels and the snowballs that spontaneously start up, and you avoid those slopes, because you just realized, hey, those slopes are heavy with moisture. Maybe my body weight alone going across that slope, creating a fault line. Here's another concept didn't include earlier, but your body weight alone can trigger an avalanche. So you see a bunch of snowballs and pinwheels running, and maybe some wet slough avalanches triggered nearby. Don't go across those slopes. If you've absolutely got to go onto a slope that's doing that, and you cannot avoid it, obviously do it when it's frozen, refrozen in the morning, or go straight up. That's the safest. Your footsteps across it will create a fault line, and it could crack out right there. And you're not going to go far with a wet slough anyway. You'll probably ride it out and laugh after. But it is a slope to avoid. So that's another sign. When I say pay attention to your changing environment around you, that's one of them. Watch out for snowballs, pinwheels. Also, if you hear, this is a noise the snowpack makes. Woof. If you hear a woofing sound, it's the movement of air caused by a section of the snowpack, typically under your feet, that's being compressed because of your body. So you just fell through a little air pocket in the snowpack below. It could be, as happened to me, it could be 30 feet around you in a circle. I dropped a foot, and it was like, oh, wow, what was that? And it's like I wasn't threatened or anything. It's going to be probably happening on flatter surfaces. If you hear that kind of sound on a sloped or inclined, steepest pitch, it's going to be a signal that whole pitch may move. And as long as the snow is stupid wet, it's not going to go far or anything. But if you hear that and it's actually in front of you and it's telling you, oh, wow, the snow is very unstable in front of me, I want to avoid this, then just put it straight up, go over where there are trees. You're safer in the trees. Trees somewhat hold snow, unless, of course, and lastly, one little detail has to do with cornices. A cornice forms on a ridge. It's a formation of snow that looks like a diving board. It's an overhang on the leeward side, or the not windy side of a ridge, and the snow just builds out further and further and further. These suckers can overhang the underlying steep slope that's supporting it. They can stick out 4, 5, 6, 8 feet. Now, probably not 8, but more like 6 or 4. And when they get wet and heavy, they can break. Sometimes they'll fall spontaneously, and with their added weight to the slope below will trigger a local little slough or a slide. So stay away from areas where you see through the trees above you cornices hanging up there. You don't know when they're going to break. Or even worse, see, the safest thing is to be up on the ridge or in the valley. If you're able to choose your own route, and you can do that because the stupid PCT summer trail is all over the place and on steep slopes you don't want to be, follow a valley, follow a ridge. They're the safest routes on snow. However, when you're on the ridge, make sure you're not standing on a cornice. So look around you and kind of maybe walk on the windy side of the ridge, because the cornice forms on the other side. So be aware of cornices, whether they're above you or under your feet, and stay away from them. Maximize electrolytes. We just went through a sort of a list of minimize. Maximize water. You sweat a ton, or you may sweat a ton while you're snow hiking. You consume a ton of calories, so this is your chance to double your food. And seriously, guys, eat like a pig. I know it's more weight. I know that you don't have the volume to carry it, but you do not want to compromise your mentation or your thought processes, because your brain is starved for food and you can't think straight to avoid hazards seen or not yet seen, and making good, clear choices regarding safe route selection. So eat like a pig and sleep as much as you can, because remember, that's when your body heals. That's when your muscles rebuild. That's when tendons and cartilage get stronger. So maximize electrolyte, water, calories, and sleep. We've already talked about micro navigation and macro, because you've got to do that constantly throughout the day. I'm going to leave, if you have questions about that, I'll leave it to you to ask later. Route selection, we've already covered. You don't have to follow the summer trail. Snow is water. It just happens to be in a frozen state. So it's slippery. We all know that. You've already been in it. You've already seen some of the miserable side effects of melting snow. But I just want to make sure we underline that it's not only going through different phases of being predictably hard or not during the day, but that it's slippery and you need to be able to stick to it. Sticking meaning you need to get a bite into it. You need to get a grip on it all the time, or you're going to slip and fall. Slipping and falling, not so bad. It's a fast and hard stop at the end. If you're on a steep slope, hey, it may be deflected. As soon as you hit the slope, you're going to start a wild ass tumble that you're going to have to self-arrest. We'll get to that in a couple seconds. But slow down is the point here, because snow is slippery. Every step has to be solid. It's totally different environment. You're not on dry trail anymore. You're not going through the desert. You're on a slippery surface. Dial it back. Don't push off your toes anymore. You're going to have to walk footed like a duck. But you'll find this out. You'll find out if I push you hard, I get too excited, your feet are going to fly out from behind you. You're going to slip on your toes, lose your balance, hopefully catch it with poles, and laugh about it and change your mechanics. Staying balanced at all time will prevent a fall. And I'm getting to the end of this. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. So hang in there. If you got to make a bathroom stop, this is a good time. I've got only a few more points to make. If you balance, because you're pulling now, your pole plants are not next to your feet like on summer trail, because in the summer on the trail going through the desert in California, you're simply flipping your wrists and swinging your arms a little bit, and your pole plants with the tiny little summer baskets, which hopefully we'll not have out on the snow because they're useless. You have snow baskets. Your pole plants are now going to be out at 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 9 o'clock. Your pole plants have to be further away from your body. If you lose your balance, you want to be able to push against the tops of your poles and push your head back uphill. You typically fall with gravity to the downhill side of your feet, whichever direction that happens to be. So always have your poles out to the sides. They are extensions of your arms. They are extensions of your hands. If they're not in the right position to be able to push back, they're useless, and you may get in trouble. All it takes is one fall. You'll learn. Also, ice axe use. If you're on a steep enough slope to be able to fully plunge your ice axe, it is no good to you as a walking stick because it does not have a basket. If you should lose your balance and want to push on your ice axe, it's simply going to sink into the snow. Over you're going to go, and now you're in a wild ass tumble with the ensuing yard sale of all of your items tied to your outside of your packs being scattered all over the snow slope below you until you self-arrest. Hopefully you chose not to go with an ice axe. You have a self-arrest pole and you can self-arrest. Or you managed to be tethered to your ice axe. You found it during your tumble and you assumed the self-arrest position and self-arrested, and then you can go back for your lost pole and lost other items. So save your life first. But anyway, ice axes are the definitive tool for snow climbing and mountain climbing, because in this case, say you're going across the traverse on Forester Pass, they are intended to provide you with an uphill anchor. It's always in your uphill hand. Self-arrest pole is always in your downhill hand. But that ice axe is no good to you unless it is an anchor. You make it an anchor by plunging it all the way into the snow. And then if you fall, it's stuck in the snow and will stop your tumble before it starts. It doesn't say that it prevents the fall. It prevents the tumble. It is an anchor if it's fully plunged into the snow and you are hanging onto it or tethered to it. However, if you have a self-arrest pole in your downhill hand, you're doing two things. You're protecting your balance because it is a pole with a snow basket. And should you screw up somehow, slip and fall, trip, whatever, it's always in your hand as a self-arrest device. So it will stop the yard sale. Anyway, next one, ascent techniques, descent techniques, the self-arrest, sun cups, and then we wrap this. Ascent techniques on snow. You're not on trail. You can go anywhere you want to go. You can go straight up the damn thing, and that's called towing in. So have your poles at about 8 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Yeah, they're behind you because they're preventing you from falling backwards downhill. You're going straight up now. You cannot self-belay, or in other words, plunge your poles all the way into the snow in front of you and then pull yourself forward because they're just hollow aluminum, lightweight, non-rated aluminum. Do not use the carbon ones because they shatter and you can't fix them in the field. Aluminum, if it gets bent, you can bend it back and continue on your merry way. So you can still tow in with two poles and go straight up the slope. That would be the safest technique for avalanche conditions. If you're in secret season conditions, you can traverse. You can traverse going uphill, but you're going to have to need to make sure that you have a bite into the snow surface with your shoe. If it's frozen in the morning, your shoe ain't going to get a bite. So you're going to have to be wearing your crampons. If the slope that you're traversing is steep enough to where your crampons are hanging out in the air, because the only thing touching the snow now is the edge of your shoe, you better have a shoe with a hard, sharp edge. That's why mountaineers and those kind of people have boots, because they're on these conditions. Caveat, except if there's a boot track in front of you made by other people that have gone before you and you like where they're going and you're willing to follow in their footsteps, microspikes can be fine because you're standing on a flat surface side to side. The issue comes with microspike when you're not on a boot track, you're on a sloped, hard, frozen surface, and you're traversing across this thing. Microspikes have a tendency to roll right off your shoe, and then suddenly you're out in the air on ice, the icy surface, and you don't have a sharp-edged shoe to get a bite. You don't have the teeth that were underfoot, and now you got skis underfoot. Your shoes will turn into skis split second, and down you go down the hill through rocks and trees and boulders and creeks below. So that's towing in, that's ascending, traverse. You can switch back, obviously, get to a point where you want to turn around and coordinate your poles so that you always have the ability to push back against your head when you go downhill. That's the key thing. When you're changing directions, you don't lose your balance. We've talked about edging in a little bit with sharp-edged shoes. If you've got them, they will allow you to dance on that hard surface anywhere, you know, and when that gets iffy, then you put your crampons on and you keep on dancing. So it's really great when you've got boots and a bit iffy when you don't. And we talked about crampon use a little there too. So descending techniques, the safest way down is to sit down and glissade. Sit down, point your legs straight down the hill, lift your heels up, and let your butt slide. This works when the snow has a soft surface, but no more than maybe half a foot. If the snow is so deep that when you sit down, you sink into that that softened, wet snow to where your feet are up in the air, you're not going to go anywhere. You can use your poles and try and row yourself to get going, and you're not going to go anywhere because you're too deep in the snow. So the trick for going down the passes, the safest, fastest way is to get over your pass before 10 in the morning. Usually right around 10 during secret season, the surface snow of about 1 or 2 inches is soft enough so that you can sit down on it with a frozen layer underneath and just fly down like on a roller coaster, and have a self-arrest device in hand, ready to go. Maintain your balance with your upper body, feet staying in the fall line straight below you, heels up. Should you decide to want to slow down and there's soft snow, all you got to do is spread your legs. Gather snow between your legs. I know it's cold, but it works. And it slows you down. And you're creating resistance to your forward momentum by gathering snow between your legs. If now you want to speed up, take one leg, step over the mound of snow that's in between your legs, and get going again. So it's really simple. Or simply roll over and self-arrest to stop. Or drop your heels and dig in. Be careful that you do not have your crampons on your shoes when glissading, because should they get a bite into the snow surface or the ice below it, you will just somersault. If you've got any momentum going when they take a bite, then you could be in a end over end, ass over tea kettle kind of a deal. So keep your feet off the snow if you're still wearing a traction device. Better yet, take the traction devices off. That's the safest way down, is to glissade. Self-arrest device at the ready. You can descend in a traverse. It's heel first, and you're just walking on the edge of your uphill edge of your shoes as you go down. Better yet, heel plunge, which is a technique where you go straight down on your feet, but it's sort of like I call it a Nazi goose step, because you're straight legging it. You're simply standing, facing straight down the fall line or straight down the hillside. You take a leg, you keep it straight, you swing it forward, and you put all your weight on it, and you jump on it, or you land on it. And with all your weight on that, you balance yourself with your poles. You get your next leg, straighten it, swing it forward, goose step, land on it, and just, these are called plunge stepping. You will land on your heel. You will plunge into the snow a little bit, but because of the fact that you're in secret season, at least at that elevation, or if you're dropping down into the thaw zone, you're going to post hole a bit more. Hopefully not too far. There may be air pockets in the boulder field that you're walking on because you're not on the trail. So you may post hole in too far. So don't have a whole lot of momentum. This is a carefully done thing. You're not going fast, but it's the second safest way down. Glissading is first, heel plunge is second. Third is a descending traverse. Obviously, you can do switchbacks going downhill, but most people don't necessarily. You can turn at trees really easy, because the snow around the base of a tree, is, especially on the downhill side, is flat. So wind your way, switchbacking back and forth from tree well to tree well, and utilize those flat little platforms on the downhill sides of trees to rest or whatever, change direction. If you have shoes that are smooth-ish, they don't have deep lugs underneath, you can boot ski. You can boot skate, because snow will fill your crampons, snow will fill your micro spikes, snow will fill the lugs in your trail runners, whatever. They'll turn into skis really easy. You can utilize that on the downhill by simply skating. Put all your weight on one foot and thrust off the other and slide. Use your poles for balance side to side. You can even telemark ski. You can parallel ski on your shoes if you have your weight kind of a little bit more back, well, centered. If you want to slow down, rock back onto your heels. If you want to speed up, rock onto the balls of your feet. So it's really a fun thing, and you will perfect it by the time you get probably to Oregon, where you're going to have a whole lot of fun jumping up on the snow berms that are going across the trail, and then skiing down the backside and landing back on the trail and continuing on. Self-arresting. Certainly can't verbally tell you how to do it. You have to watch the videos, but the thing I want to tell you is that you got to put all your weight on the pick. It's got to be the shaft of the ice axe or the self-arrest pole. It's got to be going diagonally across your chest. You have to hold onto it as far apart as you can, because it's going to want to rotate. Shaft of the axe or shaft of the self-arrest pole is going to want to pivot around the pick that's stuck in the snow. So you want to have one hand up at your shoulder with the pick, the other hand down by your pants pocket on the opposite side of your body. So you've got a good 2 feet or more of pole length between both hands. That prevents it from rotating up to where you're going to lose control of the thing. So the self-arrest position needs to be practiced as soon as you get to a decent slope, which you will find probably on the north side of Trail Peak as you go around Horseshoe Meadows, or on the backside of Chicken Spring Lake before you start traversing Cirque Peak. Take a few hours. It doesn't take long, especially if you're in a group. Help each other, watch each other, and help each person fine-tune their skills of sitting in a glissade, laying back, like you're lying on your back in the snow with your feet below you, roll over onto your stomach, and dig that pick in and come to a stop. You know, that's the basic beginner's position, but that's the basic position you want to end in. Whether you fell ass over tea kettle and you're upside down on your back, you want to get to a position where your feet are below you, head is above you, and you're on your stomach, and you're in the self-arrest position as I just described a minute ago. Once the thaw starts, you're going to have sun cups, like I mentioned before, like as deep as garbage cans and so forth. You walk on the rim of them while it's hard. Try not to step into them because you could post-hole further. And you can kick through the rims at certain times of day, but it looks like a honeycomb, a fairly deep pocketed honeycomb, and they're a pain in the butt. But that's in the thaw zone, or if you're if the thaw has already started, anticipate seeing that. Obviously, the creeks are going to start to open up. Join the call, cool, let somebody in. The creeks are going to start to open up in the thaw zone. You're going to see more and more portholes in the snow where you'll see running water down below. Avoid them because they will represent thinner snow around them. That's how they formed, because that area got a lot of splash from the creek below it, or got a lot of hot air blowing up underneath the snowpack along the creek, creating these soft pockets, and then that thaws out to where the snow completely collapses in that one area, and you can see the creek below. We talked about that earlier. I just wanted to say walk around those suckers, but there'll be more and more of them appearing in creeks until the entire creek becomes open in quotes, meaning you can see the water in the creek. If you need to cross and you can't find a thick snow bridge, always seek out upstream a meadow where the water will be wider, therefore shallower, slower, less turbulent. You'll have a smoother bottom because there's less turbulence and less whitewater, and it'd be a safer crossing, less water pushing against you. Meadows are your friend. You may have to find one, or log crossings and so forth. And then I think the last thing here, we already talked about nighttime travel. And we already talked about valleys and ridges. Therefore, this presentation is coming to a close, and I want to throw this open to Q&A. You can open up your mics. Please, everyone, don't speak at once. Respect each other. If you have a question, I'm sure everybody else has the same one. Somebody answer or ask it, and I'll answer. So have at it. Open your mics. Find the button down below.
We have quite a few questions here at Kennedy Meadows.
Yes.
We have a slides here. Can read them out to you here.
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. It's been very helpful.
Good.
We were wondering about so snow safety, camping, and hiking. We've covered that.
Where's the safest place to camp? No, we really haven't. Like, if there is like a gully or something, like where is the safest place to camp?
You will, well, obviously flat surfaces. You want to avoid any. Yeah, you might want to turn your mic off while I'm talking, and then open it back up after. You want to avoid camping in areas which have been hit by avalanches before. Suddenly, you're not in forest anymore, and you're looking around, you going like, why the hell is there a straight line of snow going right uphill? That's because an avalanche came through there during the winter and wiped out all the trees. I probably would camp there. You know, camp in the trees, camp on flat surfaces, camp in the meadows, camp next to creeks far enough away that you're not camping on the creek. But if there's 18 feet of snow on the creek, who the hell cares? That's the safest. I'd probably camp in the trees, but there's nothing wrong with camping on 15 feet of snow up at the base of Forester Pass. Or even, as I said earlier, you can camp on the peak. You can camp on the very top of the peak. You melt snow for water and then pound out a flat surface. So I would say the only risk involved is if you're camping on snow that's too thin. Listen, make sure you're not camping on a creek. Look around, make sure what you think is a meadow is not actually a lake. Look for, where the light blue snow, light gray snow versus white, and kind of get an idea on your map. If your GPS says you're on a lake and you got questions, head over to the trees on the side or onto the rock fields, not glacial fields, but the boulder fields next to the lake, and just pound out a flat platform. So that would be, those would be the safe places to camp.
Awesome, thank you. Our next question is, what's the best way to get weather reports? Because we can look at cities like Bishop or Lone Pine or Vermilion area, but do you know any websites or applications that'll give us good weather reports that are accurate for the mountains?
That is an excellent question. I don't use them, so I don't know, but I've heard that through the InReach you can get weather reports. I don't know. I'm not very tech savvy. But the weather will tell you what's coming. If you're paying attention, here's another takeaway expression. Obviously, it's just look up. 2 words, look up. Meaning, be aware of the environment around you, not just underfoot and not just to the side, but pay attention to what the little animals and the birds are doing. If they're suddenly quiet, it means there's a predator in the area. If you're looking up higher, if the clouds are changing quickly, what are they changing from and what are they changing to? That will tell you what's coming. If you have a little AM radio with you, you're packing along because you believe there's another storm coming, which there is, incidentally, for you guys. Probably next weekend, maybe in your area, you may get another little storm. And wind direction changes when there's a storm coming. So I don't know the technical side, so I really can't answer that one.
I can help.
Okay, go for it, Jeff.
The website www.mountain-forecast.com is a fairly good predictor. They take the standard forecasts and they interpolate and they apply elevation differences and all that kind of stuff. It tends to be a little bit pessimistic, which means it's a little bit precautionary, but they usually get it reasonably correct. I've used them mostly in the Spring Mountains outside of Las Vegas, but I have used them for the Sierra a fair amount. They're pretty good. And again, that's www.mountain-forecast.com. And the other thing is you can get a forecast through your InReach. It's only fair, but it's better than nothing. It'll tell you about big approaching systems, but I wouldn't count on it for details. That's it.
Yeah, I'll also have it posted. I'll have your warnings posted on my Facebook page if there's something.
If there's something big, we'll post it. Yeah.
If we could ask another question, we were warning about defecation. Now, like, is there a proper way that I guess the national would better appreciate is a pack in, pack out, even with our
Pack it out.
Hang on, Jeff. Okay, good question. And over my 41 years of teaching snow camping, it always comes up. It needs to come up. I've done everything from create latrines for whole groups for a week to, just obviously going up the Sierra. Keep this in mind. Obviously, you're on snow. What the hell do you do? You can't bury your poop in the dirt. Leave no trace principles don't apply. So you've got one option. Sure, you could pack it out, but get this. There are animals up there that would simply love to eat it. I know it sounds disgusting, But I've gone back into a lot of places where I have spent group camps on snow and checked out the latrine to, once the snow all melted, was there poop on the ground? Was there toilet paper there? All that sort of stuff. Toilet paper you pack out or you burn it. You're not going to cause a forest fire burning paper surrounded by snow. So if it's a windy day, you might not want to have flaming toilet paper flying up into the trees. So that pack out, but you can burn it. And it's, if it's a small enough size, you can pack that out, you put it in a Ziploc, pack it out, but most of it you'll be able to burn. The poop itself never has shown up on the ground in group camp sites I've had in the winter where we had, 10, 20 people for a week in different, at different weeks. So the animals will love you. They'll, especially once the marmots and coyotes come out and other animals crawling around, don't sweat it. And it most likely will not appear on the ground once the snow melts.
Copy that. Now that we have the poop
Difference
info,
of opinion here.
Kennedy Meadows will make it through the Sierras.
Hey,
I did.
I don't
If you can carry it in, if you can carry the food in, you can carry the poop out. It'll be smaller volume, smaller weight. For every poop, bring a small piece of newspaper in a Ziploc or double Ziploc, and it's conformal. It'll pad your camera and all your other delicate stuff in your pack. If you can pack the food in, you can pack the poop out.
It's up to you guys what you want to do. There's an option for you from Jeff. Next.
If you have any information about the ranger station in Crabtree, we have some questions about that if you're at all familiar.
Yeah. Those guys probably won't be in until June 1st. They're going through trainer now. They've got to be packed in or flown in. So they're not going to be there till maybe mid-June, early June.
Okay, we were specifically worrying about if there's enough. So we're supposed to be going through Crabtree in the middle of this thunderstorm on Wednesday or Thursday, and we were just wondering if there's enough wind coverage from the structure of the building to cover 9 to 10 tents.
There's plenty of trees in that area. I don't think you're going to have a problem. It's just, you're still down below tree line, so I don't think you're going to have a problem.
I lost your
Okay.
How do we what? Keep our shoes.
What's hold on. So the snow melt strategy we were talking about. Everyone's worried about the snow, but since we're going in, we're planning on going in on Wednesday, and we would just like to know if we have anything to worry about with river crossings. How are the river crossings looking at this point?
Like I said earlier, first one's going to be Rock Creek. If it depends upon where you hit snow line, but if you hit snow line at the end of your first day in Monachi, maybe Cow Creek, you're going to have 30 miles at least before you get to Cottonwood. And don't hold me to the numbers. It's just old hat for me. Where you're going to be doing 1 mile an hour. So you're not going to have any creek crossings till after Cottonwood. And then once you get into Rock, you're at a high enough altitude that you'll have snow bridges, so you're not going to have a problem. So no, it's a non-problem.
I just want to double check if anyone else has any questions. I think we might be good. Any more questions?
With the snow, with the bridge that faltered recently, I'm not sure exactly where it is. Is there a remedial route which we can take?
Yeah, he posted one.
Okay. You posted one. I just got the information. Yep, there it is. Right there.
Yeah, you guys are going to be so early. And you're going to be so used to going where you want because everything is covered in snow. If you get to the place where you have to make a decision, which is at the Bishop Pass, the first one is Bishop Pass turnoff. If you're still on 12 feet of snow or whatever, 8 feet of snow, you're looking down. You'll be able to measure that by looking down the trunks of trees, because the tree will be warmer than the snow. There'll be an air gap between the tree and the snow all the way around it. If you can see dirt, you can measure the distance from the top of the snow to the dirt. But I bet you're not going to be able to see snow or see dirt looking down a tree well. And therefore, when you might feel comfortable enough to continue forward and make your second decision at, oh God, you could probably, well, since you're used to going cross country, when you go over Muir Pass and you're heading down north, going by Wanda Lake, consider going cross country. Of course, everything is cross country because you're on snow and there's no trail. Consider cutting west and going over the ridge into the Goddard Creek, San Joaquin River drainage, and following that all the way down on snow. It could be that the Evolution Creek crossing at the base of that descent will still be covered in snow. You won't know till you get there. So even if the safest way is Bishop Pass, Paiute Pass. If there's any question, I'm just throwing this out as an idea. Of course, if you can't get across Evolution Creek at the bottom of this side route, you're screwed. You got to go backwards. But I would say that there are ways for you early travelers. I can't tell you where.
Another question, you mentioned Bishop Pass. That is not, let's say, on the piece of paper that we have in front of us. It will definitely, of course, be in our far out and so on. But so far we've been planning and discussing about going to Kearsarge Pass and then to Independence. You mentioned something about the road closed. But is this Bishop Pass before or after that point?
After.
After. Okay. Good. So that is something we could further find out and get more information by the time we get there, which is at least 8 days or so from now.
How many? Okay, guys, you're in a group. You're in a group right there. Somebody can tell me how many miles is it from Kennedy Meadows South to Bishop Pass?
I think it's 111 miles with Whitney.
Did you say 111?
Yes.
At a mile an hour. 11
Yeah,
days.
we were planning for 11 days.
Yeah, I would say, or even more. If a storm comes in, you're not going to want to be moving. So you better bring extra food for that. I would probably advise against Whitney. It's too dangerous right now. You got to have anchors and safety snow climbing tools to go up there right now. I wouldn't do Whitney.
Can you explain a little bit further about it? Because I was a lot of us were thinking about doing Whitney still.
Don't do it.
Like don't do it, man.
Yeah, don't do it.
Can you give me a bit more information? And just don't.
Okay. If you want, okay, you're going to get to Whitney Creek at Crabtree, and you're going to probably be on 6-8 feet of snow, and you're not going to see the creek. It's going to be a big white flat meadow, and the ranger station, of course, is upstream, and you have to go through the trees to get up there, and you're going to continue on up, and it's going to be all snow until you get up onto the flanks of Whitney and the slopes that lead up to Trail Crest. That is, you're going to, if you eat it there, if you fall there, it's good night. You don't want to go up there right now. Just don't do it. Come back later in the summer and do it.
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious. A lot of us probably might not have a chance to come back and do this year. I don't know. The permits are a little.
Yeah.
Still kind of up in the air with that, but I wanted your opinion on it because a lot of us are still really interested in showing it. But if it's really steep like that and really dangerous, I guess we won't try it.
Yeah, because even after, like, a lot of people have been, telling us, like, don't do the Sierra. So, like, you've been, like,
pretty proactive and supporting people going through. And now, yeah, optimistic. And now hearing you say that for Whitney, maybe might be a bit of a reality check, I guess.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Surprising.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's perfect. I think we had all our questions answered.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you so much
Thank you
for your
very
time.
much.
You,
Thank you
hey,
very much.
one more question. Do you think I should do this again to the next group?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was very helpful.
How-
Yes, of course. Everyone thinking it's quite helpful. We took notes. I mean, we've been looking at maps while you were talking to figure out the places you were talking about, and I definitely think so. I
How
appreciated
often?
it. Great.
How often should I do this? When's the next group showing up?
I could show here like every day, but most of them are staying here at least 2 days to zero and rest. So yeah, I think if you do it every other day, then you should get every day. A lot of work.
Maybe once or twice a week.
If it's posted on Facebook, can people access this recording?
Yes.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
we can always share the link too. Yeah, 'cause this was very helpful. You don't need to repeat this all the time.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but people may have specific questions. Maybe you could do like a smaller, like 2 hour length one. If people have like very specific questions related to a weather event that's coming or something relevant to
Okay.
their group.
All right. That sounds good. I thought I'd pick your brains. I figure you guys know where everybody is behind you, or maybe you've heard rumor. This is recorded, so I will get the link up on the Facebook page for Mountain Education, and as well as mine. And also keep in mind, if you guys, if I could, this is a charity. I do this for free, but I still have to go to work to pay for it. If you guys thought, if you got something out of this, if it helped keep you safer, if it made you wiser and smarter, and you think later, damn, maybe I'll pitch a penny this way or that way. Think about it. Send some our way, because we can't do what we do without your help.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That sounds good. Thank you so much.
How do we send you money?
Go to mountaineducation.org, and there's a donate button.
Okay.
Hey, Ned, could you again emphasize not exiting over Trail Crest?
Okay. If you don't know what's happened to create the Sierra has been created not just by glaciers. It was created by tectonic plate uplift long time ago, obviously. So the east side of the Sierra is way more vertical than the west side. You guys are walking along the west side of the Sierra, where things are kind of undulating and just vertical for brief distances, like Forester Pass or Mather. The east side of the Sierra is super frickin' steep, and it's a cold side, so it's icy. You do not want to be going downhill on ice without being anchored to something.
Can I toss in 2 cents worth?
Yeah.
Ned is doing a fantastic job. I'm now speaking to the PCT hikers. Ned's doing a fantastic job of presenting all this. My fear is he's making it sound too easy. Travel over snow over extended different distances with difficult exits is a serious business, and it should be undertaken if you're aware of what's going on, you're in a good group, you're strong, you've got sufficient food, and you really understand all the hazards and all the risks and all that. It's not trivial. It's nothing like a summertime walk on the trail. And it's doubly hazardous if you start doing intensely vertical, dangerous ascents like Trail Crest. And he's not kidding when he says don't do that. If you have to ask about Trail Crest, you don't belong there when there's snow on it. That's all.
Very good. Yep. And that should bring it to a close, unless somebody else who's hung on to the very end. Lori, Jeff, Mike, Mitchell, Candace, JD, Joseph, you got any other questions? Speak up. All right.
Thank you, Ned.
You're very welcome.
Thank you again from Kennedy Meadows South for your clear presentation.
I do know there's a lot of hikers that the last week coming through.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yeah.